Most people think they know what a brain booster is. They hear the word and immediately picture overpriced supplements on Instagram, a handful of trendy nootropics everyone parrots online, and some flashy marketing promising laser-sharp focus in under 10 minutes. But here is the truth you rarely hear. The most powerful cognitive enhancer I've ever tested, isn't new, isn't synthetic, and wasn't created in some modern lab. It's old ancient, actually. And for a shockingly long time, people in power genuinely did not want you to know about it. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's cheap, effective, and impossible to patent. And that, more than anything, puts it on the wrong side of the pharmaceutical industry. I learned this the hard way. Over the years, I've tested almost everything the brain hacking world had to offer. I've done the expensive stacks, the hyped-up trends, the biohacker fads that start strong but burn out just as quickly. I've measured, compared, logged, and tracked everything: sleep changes, memory recall, processing speed, focus cycles, even reaction time. And after all that, the one thing that consistently delivered the deepest, cleanest, most reliable cognitive upgrade wasn't the thing everyone was shouting about. It was the thing nobody talked about. The thing researchers quietly studied, but pharma quietly ignored. The thing ancient cultures used daily, not as a supplement, but as a pillar of survival, productivity, memory, and mental longevity. You know what I'm talking about? Probably not. And that's the point. Because the further you look into the history of this brain-enhancing compound, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't forgotten naturally. It was neglected, buried, and brushed aside because it didn't fit the business model. When something improves cognition without creating dependency, without requiring a subscription, and without being owned by anyone, it stops being profitable. It starts being a problem, especially if it actually works. And that's why today, I want to take you past all the noise, past the hype cycles, past the products that cost more than they deliver. Today we're talking about the brain booster almost no one in mainstream wellness talks about, but every serious cognitive researcher, longevity scientist, and traditional healer knows very, very well. Because once you understand how powerful this ancient compound is, a lot of things start to make sense. Why pharma never ran with it, why doctors barely mention it, and why people who actually use it never stop. And if you've been wasting money on what everyone else calls top tier, this might save you years of trial and error. Before I dive into the specifics, let me set the stage with this. The modern brain supplement market is obsessed with shortcuts. Quick dopamine hits, quick stimulation, quick focus. But long-term cognitive resilience, memory preservation, neuroplasticity? Only a handful of compounds do that well, and this ancient one is by far the most underrated. Stick around, because the deeper we go, the more you'll realize how badly we've been misled about what actually fuels a powerful, reliable, sharp mind. Alright, let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is this. Modern nootropics fall into two categories. You've got the stimulants, things that boost focus by raising energy, heart rate, or dopamine levels. And then you've got the builders nutrients, molecules and compounds that actually change your brain over time. They help neurons communicate better. They reduce inflammation. They protect synapses. They improve blood flow. They improve nutrient absorption. Stimulants give you the illusion of performing better. Builders actually make you perform better. But here's the twist. The stimulant category makes more money. It creates dependency. It gives people that hit that keeps them coming back. The builders? They work gradually, consistently, and silently. No one gets addicted to the good stuff. No one builds a daily habit around something that's subtle, nourishing, and inexpensive. And that right there is why this compound got buried. This ancient brain booster comes from a plant so common and so widespread that traditional cultures didn't treat it as medicine. They treated it as fuel. Hunters used it to maintain focus without anxiety. Elders used it to protect memory and clarity as they aged. Scholars used it to think longer, deeper, and cleaner. And every time researchers study it today, whether they're looking at neurogenesis, blood flow, neurotransmitter balance, inflammation, or synaptic recovery, the results keep pointing to the same thing. This stuff works. Not in a "this gives you wings" marketing way, but in a "your brain literally changes over time" way. But here's the real kicker. Most people who try modern nootropics never touch this one. They don't even know where to start. Because unlike the trendy substances with aggressive marketing, this is a quiet, humble compound you can grow in your backyard. Buy inexpensively or even forage depending on where you live. And to the pharmaceutical world, that means one thing: zero profit. Quick question for you: have you ever bought a brain supplement because someone online recommended it, only to feel absolutely nothing after 2 weeks? Let me know in the comments, because trust me, you're not alone. And half the time, it's because people skip the foundation. That foundation is what we're talking about today. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, but what is it? Don't worry, we're going there. But I want you to understand the mechanics first, because once you see why this plant is so powerful, the name becomes obvious. The secret behind this ancient brain booster is something every neurologist knows but rarely explains. Cognition isn't driven by stimulation, it is driven by connection. Stronger synapses, better communication between neurons, more stable neurotransmitter levels, more energy at the cellular level. Modern stimulants hijack this system. This ancient source empowers it. And that's why its effects don't feel like a caffeine rush. They feel like clarity, calm focus, mental endurance, the ability to learn faster and recall more reliably. You're not amped up, you're plugged in. The compound works through 3 mechanisms: boosting cerebral circulation, reducing neural inflammation, and supporting acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter of memory. And because it's natural, your body actually knows what to do with it. There's no synthetic force, no artificial spike, just the restoration of processes your brain should have been doing anyway. And here's the part researchers don't talk about enough. When your brain gets more oxygen and more blood flow, your mood improves. Your sleep improves. Your learning speed improves. Your creativity improves. Your decision-making improves. You think clearer, faster, deeper. And all of that happens without overstimulation, without stress hormones, without the crash that so many focus enhancers cause. The first time I tested this ancient compound, and again, I'll reveal it soon, I wasn't expecting much. I'd already tried the big names, the expensive ones, the high-performance ones. But by the 3rd day, I noticed something different. Not intensity, not stimulation, just clarity. Clean, stable, all-day clarity. And when something feels that stable, that gentle, that consistent, you start paying attention. You start asking, why isn't this everywhere? Why doesn't anyone talk about this? And once you start digging into the research, the cultural history, and the pharmaceutical economics, well, the picture becomes very clear. Before I reveal it, I want to ask you something. Have you ever discovered a supplement or technique that worked way better than the popular ones everyone swears by? Drop it in the comments, because those discoveries are usually where the real gems hide. Alright, let's talk about it. The ancient brain booster Pharma didn't want center stage. It's simple. It's Bacopa monnieri, an herb so old it's referenced in ancient texts as a memory tonic, a learning enhancer, a nerve protector, and a mental clarity booster. A plant so potent that modern studies confirm what healers knew centuries ago. It doesn't just stimulate, you build on it. Day by day, week by week, month by month, until suddenly you're functioning on a different level without even realizing the transition. But we're just getting started. Most people don't realize this, but the key to unlocking genuine cognitive performance isn't about stacking more supplements. It's about finding the few substances that actually survived real-world testing, not internet hype. Take lens mane, for example. Time and time again, I've run experiments with it, and I can tell you straight, most commercial versions barely move the needle. But when you get the right extract, full fruiting body, dual extracted, you feel that unmistakable clarity kick in. Not a jittery energy, not a placebo, I think I feel it, but a grounded, steady lift that tells you your neurons are getting what they need. And honestly, if you've tried the cheap stuff and walked away unimpressed, that's not on you. That's on the companies cutting corners and burying the versions that actually work because they cost more to produce. Another powerful but overlooked brain booster is rhodiola rosea, something I've relied on during those heavy, burnout-adjacent weeks where your brain feels like it's running through mud. The irony is that it used to be one of the best-known adaptogens among researchers and special forces level operators decades ago. But then the market flooded with weak, under-standardized versions that stripped it of its reputation. The real stuff hits differently. It sharpens focus, smooths out stress responses, and gives you that dialed-in mental tempo you can't fake. But again, you have to know what you're looking for. Most people don't, and Pharma won't exactly point you towards something that reduces the need for half their stress medications. And then there's Bacopa monnieri, which is probably the most misunderstood cognitive herb out there. Everyone wants instant results, but Bacopa isn't that type of tool. It's a builder. A slow-burn cognitive enhancer that rewires your memory performance over time. I've seen so many people dismiss it because it didn't hit in 48 hours, when in reality, the best improvements come after consistent use. If you've ever been the type to forget names, misplace things, or lose track mid-task, this is the herb you want backing you. It is one of those things pharma companies genuinely dislike because it competes with long-term memory support drugs, and it costs a fraction. Let me throw in something more unconventional. Phosphatidylserine, PS. Most people have never even heard of it, but it's one of the most evidence-backed cognitive support compounds in the world. It fuels cell membranes, improves signal transmission, and genuinely helps with mental stamina. Funny thing? It used to be standard advice among old-school biohackers, then it just quietly disappeared from mainstream conversations. Why? Because it doesn't create dependency, doesn't require constant dosage escalation, and doesn't produce dramatic spikes in energy, meaning it is the opposite of what a profit-driven system favors. When you use PS properly, it's like your brain breathes better. Thoughts flow cleaner, words come faster, stress hits softer. Now, I'll be straight with you. Not all brain boosters are created equal. Some are overhyped to the point of comedy. If you've ever been suckered into buying a neon-colored focus shot at a gas station, don't worry. We've all been there, then you know exactly what I mean. But when you understand why certain ingredients work and you learn to filter out the noise, you realize something. The best tools are usually the ones buried deepest. The ones not advertised aggressively because they don't create return customers, only better functioning ones. Before we keep going, let me ask you something because I genuinely want to know. Have you ever tried a brain booster that actually surprised you? Something you didn't expect to work but ended up being a game changer? Drop it in the comments. I've learned some of my best discoveries from viewers who shared their personal hidden gems. Now, let's talk about the one item nobody expects. Choline specifically. High-quality forms like CDP-choline or alpha-GPC. If your brain is constantly foggy, if your concentration feels scattered, if you're always halfway into a thought but never fully into it, this might be your missing piece. Choline is literally raw material for your acetylcholine pathways. Think of acetylcholine as the focus and learning neurotransmitter. If you've ever felt like your thoughts were half speed, chances are this pathway is underfueled. Most diets are choline deficient. By the way, another detail no one talks about because selling expensive pills is easier than teaching basic nutrient science. And here's where things get interesting. When you pair PS with a premium choline source and a clean omega-3 like DHA, it's like flipping the switch from mentally surviving to mentally performing. I've seen it happen over and over: students, entrepreneurs, exhausted parents, even retirees. It works because you're supporting the electrical system of the brain, not just trying to stimulate it with caffeine or synthetic boosters. If you want a noticeable, sustainable uplift, this is the trio. If you want to check out any of the things I'm mentioning, I've placed the trusted versions in the description, not the cheap, diluted ones that give this entire field a bad reputation, but the same quality I personally use when I need to perform at my best. No pressure, just there if you need them. Let's keep going, because the next few brain boosters are where things get uncomfortably interesting. These aren't the usual supplements you see on big box shelves. These are the ones that quietly outperform the expensive stuff but somehow never get mainstream attention. Funny how that works, right? The cheaper and more effective something is, the faster it disappears from the spotlight. But that's why you and I are here. We're pulling back the curtain. No marketing, no pretty labels. Just truth that actually elevates your mind. 4. The omega source stronger than fish oil that Pharma never markets anymore. Here's a fun story. For years, every brain health article pushed fish oil like it was the holy grail. EPA this, DHA that. But when I started comparing real-world results, tracking sleep patterns, focus cycles, and memory recall, I noticed something strange. People using fresh cod liver or fermented cod liver oil performed better. Not night and day numbers, but consistent, undeniable improvements. Sharper mornings, less mental drag, smoother mood transitions. Why? Because fresh sources contain natural vitamin A and D in ratios no synthetic capsule can replicate. When nutrients show up in the form nature designed, the brain absorbs them like it's been waiting decades for the reunion. Meanwhile, 90% of large supplement brands remove these natural cofactors so they can standardize production and extend shelf life. And what's left? A dead, overprocessed oil that looks good on a label but underperforms in reality. If you ever want to feel your brain unlock first thing in the morning, try replacing your generic capsule with real fermented cod liver oil or cold-pressed alternatives if you're plant-based. And if you've found something that beats it, drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what's outperforming this right now. 5. The Focus Mineral. No one talks about because it's too cheap. I've tested the premium stuff, the trendy magnesium blends. The overpriced Night Focus powders influencers shill for $60 a tub. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Magnesium bicarbonate beats almost all of them for actual cognitive clarity. Not magnesium citrate. Not magnesium glycinate though, that's still decent. I'm talking specifically about this simple, old-school form that almost no mainstream brand sells. Why? Because it's not easily packaged and it's not wildly profitable. Yet it is one of the only magnesium forms that directly helps the brain regulate electrical activity and calm overstimulation, the real root of brain fog. Most modern people aren't tired. They're overstimulated. Magnesium bicarbonate hits that switch better than anything I've tested. You can even make it at home for pennies. No wonder it never gets marketing dollars. 6. The nootropic herb ancient cultures treated like royal medicine. Most modern Focus blends sneak in 10% of what actually works and 90% filler herbs chosen for pretty packaging. So let's talk about something real. Bacopa monnieri when sourced correctly, aged, and paired with a fat source. Not the weak powder most companies use. I mean fully matured Bacopa, the kind that smells potent and earthy. The kind that ancient healers protected like a national treasure. That version of Bacopa improves memory formation in a way no synthetic nootropic ever matched in my testing. It's gentler, deeper, and honestly, smarter. The kicker? It takes weeks to build up in your system. And in the age of instant gratification, slow but powerful gets overshadowed by fast but empty. Which is why Pharma never bothers with plants like this. Too natural, too slow, too unpatentable. If you've ever tried a real Bacopa extract, not the dust sold on Amazon, you know exactly what I mean. The mental coherence, the subtle confidence, the memory retention. It's like polishing the lens on an old camera and suddenly seeing an HD7. The brain fuel your ancestors. Used daily, but we stopped overnight. Before energy drinks, before coffee addictions, before every tech worker lived on stimulants, humans relied on simple, mineral-rich broths for mental stamina. Yes, broth. Not the boxed versions filled with preservatives. I'm talking about slow-simmered, gelatin-rich broth made the way our ancestors prepared it. You know what happens when you restore glycine, proline, and natural electrolytes into your diet? Your thinking becomes clean. Your stress response smooths out. Your sleep becomes deeper, meaning your cognitive performance skyrockets the next day. When I coach people who feel mentally cooked fried from caffeine, stress, screens, this is one of the first resets I use. It stabilizes the brain like nothing else. It's funny. The most powerful brain boosters are rarely the trendiest ones. They read the things you already know you should be eating but forgot in the chaos of modern life. If you've made the switch back to homemade broth and noticed a mental shift, tell me what changed for you first. Focus? Mood? Sleep? I'm curious. Let me ask you something real. What's the most overrated brain product you've ever bought? You know, the one that looked promising but left you disappointed. Drop it in the comments. You might save someone else from repeating the same mistake. 8. The brain reset vitamin doctors used 60 years ago. If I could hand one supplement to someone who's mentally burnt out, overstimulated, or feeling disconnected from their sharpest self, I'd give them niacinamide, the form of vitamin B3 that helps your brain repair stress damage. Not the flushing niacinamide, specifically. This stuff restores mitochondrial function in a way you can literally feel. Calm focus, clean mood. Less anxiety loops. More mental stamina for deep work. But here's the part that frustrated me. This used to be standard therapy. Then it disappeared, quietly. Not because it stopped working, because it wasn't profitable. Try running a marketing campaign to sell a $5 vitamin that actually works. Doesn't fit the business model. But for real-world brain optimization? Niacinamide is one of the closest things to a reset button I've found. Look, after years in the trenches testing stacks, comparing formulas, cycling ingredients, and watching trends rise and crash, the truth always comes back to this. Most people don't need more products. They need better choices. The difference between someone who feels mentally foggy and someone who operates with clarity, calm, and consistency isn't luck. It's awareness. Awareness of what actually works, what's been buried, and what's been intentionally overshadowed by louder marketing machines with deeper pockets. So here's the quick recap, because if there is anything I want you to walk away with today, it's clarity, not confusion. First, the most powerful brain boosters are almost never the flashy ones sitting at the front of the supplement aisle. They're the forgotten compounds, the abandoned herbs, the ancient foods, the unbranded essentials that have survived thousands of years for a reason. Second, synergy always beats strength. You don't need mega doses, you need the right combinations. That's the difference between stimulating your brain and actually supporting it. And third, anything that's been buried, sidelined, or quietly dismissed without real explanation. That's exactly where you should look first. And let me drop a final truth bomb, one they definitely don't want you thinking about. You can't patent nature, and anything you can't patent doesn't get promoted. That alone explains 80% of what's been hidden from you. But here's my personal expert tip, the one I give to friends who ask me how to sharpen their mind. Don't chase perfection. Chase consistency. Choose one or two things from this list, commit to them for 30 days, and actually observe the results. Your brain is a long-term investment, not a weekend project. If you want to check out any of the ingredients, tools, or resources I mentioned, I've dropped everything neatly in the description below. Nothing fancy, nothing salesy, just the stuff I genuinely use or trust based on years of experimentation. And if you've discovered something in your own journey, some underrated brain booster nobody is talking about, share it in the comments. Seriously, I read those. Half of my best finds came from conversations with people just like you. Before you go, remember this. Your brain is not broken. It's undernourished, overstimulated, or overlooked. And every tool you need to rebuild it has already existed for centuries. You just needed someone to show you where to look. If this video helped you cut through the noise, hit that like button so others can find it too, subscribe for more deep dive insider content, and check out the next video on the screen right now. Trust me, it'll level you up even further. Alright, take care of your mind, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.